Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the 8-Bit Adventures podcast. This is episode number 266. I am your host, Sean Hayes. Apologies for no podcast last week. Turns out I had more unexpected health issues. This time, back pain. And ended up in the emergency room last week. So yeah, that's why there was no show last week. So hopefully everyone's doing better than I am. So this week, so we do have some quick fire news. Not really a lot. I had to poach some stuff from last week. And our deep dive is going to be, there was an Unearthed Arcana for the Dungeons and Dragons fans out there for some giant themed options. So we're just going to do kind of a run through on that and my thoughts on that. So yeah, that's, I definitely have some opinions on some of the design choices in that. So hopefully everyone's doing well. Hope you all are enjoying Super Mario Strikers. Because I think that comes out, or I guess there was a demo. But I think it comes out this week. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll pick it up. Still trying to decide. Like, I also haven't picked up Nintendo Switch Sports yet. There's been a whole bunch of other stuff that I've needed to do. So, all right. Why don't we get into this week's quick fire news and talk about that, shall we? First up, the old Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now streaming on Disney Plus. I think we're on episode 4 already. So there we go. It's episode 3 or 4. I think we're on 4 of this, I think, mini series. So I saw episodes 1 and 2. I enjoyed them. There's some comment there, as usual, because it's Star Wars. There's some commentary happening about the fact that it's, quote, not good because of certain dialogue choices. And it's people that are like having very weird takes on particular lines being said. And it's like the most common interpretation does not line up. So it's like taking a weird interpretation of stuff intentionally to then get mad about it. So I don't know. So far I've enjoyed it. And yeah, I got to get caught up. But it is available now on Disney Plus. Episodes come out every Wednesday. Keeping with that, Stranger Things 4 episodes 1 through 5 of season 4 are now available on Netflix. So it's like Stranger Things 4 part 1, and part 2 is going to be like 2 more episodes, or something like that. It's like a weird split where it's not in like 2 parts, like 2 equal parts. So I don't know what the planning was on that from Netflix's standpoint, because like all the post-production should be done. But those are out as is typical for Netflix, not a weekly release. So episodes 1 through 5 are all available to watch now, and then the other 2 come out in July. These are much longer than previous episodes, so most of these range, somewhere in like I think the shortest one might be like still over an hour. And then we get all the way up to like 2.5 hours for the finale, I guess. So buckle up. Also, I have heard this is a lot darker and more gruesome than previous seasons. So might be something if you are parents with kids and they were fine watching Stranger Things 1 through 3, might want to screen it first. I haven't actually seen it yet, so I can't speak as to any content warnings. But this is what I've heard, is that it's there's definitely some a little traumatic stuff in there. So you might want to screen it first and just kind of keep an eye on that. That's a lot of tie-ins with Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons doing some cross-promotional stuff for this season. So it seems like they're kind of tying those threads together a little bit more. And as part of Netflix's big push, they're doing some sort of Netflix's like week of geekdom or something. And they're doing like essentially a one-shot with the cast, which I think is fun. Run by B. Dave Walters, master of horror. So we'll see how that goes. That might be an interesting one to catch up on. Next up, Sony. So Sony had their big state of play, which was going to be their E3 presentation. E3 again not happening this year, so they had that. I'm going to just give a quick, very sort of top level overview of some of the games that were talked about in that. But first, Sony plans for roughly half of its releases to be on PC or mobile by 2025. Now I didn't recall if that was like past releases or if it was going to be like a model going forward of when they release. I'm sure when they release something, maybe they want it to be a PlayStation exclusive for like a year or something, but I guess the plan is to have half of their releases on PC or mobile in 3 years time. They currently make up about a quarter, so they're looking to like double that output. Which it makes me wonder if we're heading toward an ecosystem which it could certainly be argued that we're already in an ecosystem where having a gaming PC that can play some of the newer releases is probably better than buying any of the consoles, except for Nintendo. Because it just seems like Xbox, you can, kind of natively get that stuff on PC. You have Steam available. And then with Sony pushing their stuff to basically Steam or to Epic, because I think that's also a deal that's happening. Between Steam, Epic, Game Pass, and then Sony getting in the mix somewhere, it kind of calls into question of like, is getting a PlayStation or Xbox actually worth it? And this is a caveat, if you have a machine that can handle those games. Like if you don't have one, it is, generally speaking, cheaper to get a console that will last you 5 to 6 years and that is going to be able to play the games that are made for that console, or should be, let's put it that way, versus, getting a PC and then having to iterate on it or whatever. That might be twice the price, but that said, I mean, I have been a proponent of, if you're okay not getting Sony stuff basically on day one, I mean, your best bet is to like get a gaming PC and a Switch, and then you have all your bases covered pretty much. But we'll see. We'll see if something changes. This also might be a plan to shift focus. Like if we continue to have all these chip shortages, I mean, then it kind of behooves Sony to be like, yeah, let's just put it out on PC, like, because we can't sell systems. Like, systems, like, we are selling as fast as we are making them, and we can't make them fast enough. So, I mean, if the chip shortage goes away, then, you know, maybe they might be like, okay, well, we'll continue putting out and we'll make our money on PlayStation, you know, on selling PlayStation exclusives. But yeah, it makes me wonder if a lot of, if basically, you know, Microsoft, Sony, and I mean, to a certain degree, Nintendo are all feeling kind of this crunch several years later from chip shortages. And if we're going to continue to see that for the foreseeable future. All right, so talked about that. So the big state of play, Resident Evil 4 Remake. So in keeping with like remaking previous Resident Evils using their new engine, Capcom's remaking 4. And it's going to be on PlayStation. And again, a lot of these may also be coming to PC. And I say that because Stray, which is sort of a cyberpunk game in which you play as a cat, that is also coming to PC and PlayStation. That actually got pushed back like a month or so. I think it was supposed to be out already, but it's being pushed to July. Spider-Man Remastered, Street Fighter 6, Final Fantasy 16, got some more footage of that. Tunic, so that cutesy little foxy Zelda game that I've been playing on Steam, or was playing on Steam on stream. That's a tongue twister for a while. That'll be coming to PlayStation. I think it might already be on Xbox, because I thought it was on Game Pass, but I could be wrong about that. And then a whole bunch of other various smaller titles are coming as well. So yeah. So again, very top level. You know, seems like a lot of the big stuff they were talking about are either remasters for PS5, or footage from games that we already knew about. Next up, indie titles. V Rising is sort of the latest indie game to catch steam by storm. Seems like we've kind of swung back in the direction of vampires in the like pirates, Vikings, zombies, vampire, you know, maybe ninjas fit in there somewhere of the rotation. You know, between vampire survivors. So V Rising is, you could call it a survival ARPG. It reminds me a lot just visually of like Divinity. So anybody that's played any of the Divinity Original Sin games, or Baldur's Gate 3, kind of looks similar to that, except it doesn't have turn-based combat. So in that regard, it's more like a Diablo-style action RPG where it's, you know, you're looking down and freely moving about and using your skills and stuff. But it really emphasizes a survival and base building aspect where you are trying to rebuild a castle and you have to go out and essentially rebuild it yourself, and like outfit your castle with like furniture and furnishings and protective wards and things like that. But you are a vampire. And so they do like a weather and day-night cycle in the game. And so when it's daytime, you can't, and this is what really caught me when I was looking at footage of it, and watching one of my favorite streamers play it. So they also use a very extensive light and shadow system. Now granted, like in most games, you know, you have light and shadows and stuff, and you know, it gets rendered, but they don't really do much with it. I think Baldur's Gate 3, they might be using it with the hide mechanics, like with stealth mechanics, where like being in the shade like increases your stealth level a bit so that you can hide, or at least hide a little bit easier. So with this, if it's daytime and you're in shadow or in shade, you do not take any damage from sunlight. Whereas if you're in a brightly, sunlit area, you gradually take damage over time as you are burning to a crisp. So it emphasizes you trying to find areas of shade to hop between. And for anyone that's seen Bluey, it's you play Shadowlands. And that's like a whole element of exploration in the game. And as the sun progresses through the course of the day, shadows move and shift so that it's not going to be the same. And then when nighttime comes, then you're safe to freely roam about. I haven't played it yet. I did pick it up on Steam. I'm trying to get through a bunch of other stuff first. But it looked, I've heard a lot of really positive reviews for it. And honestly, its level of success has caught its developers by surprise. Like, they just didn't expect it to be as popular as it is. And apparently this isn't the first time this has happened for them. Like, they've made a couple other games, and like, put them out on Steam I think it is early access. But they put them out on Steam, super wild runaway success, and they were just like, oh my goodness. So yeah, it's good to see that. So just highlighting another fun indie game, that I would certainly like to try out. I want to have it. I gotta like finish up a bunch of other stuff, and then try to have just like an afternoon where I can just like start up a file and just sink right into it and just put a couple hours, put like an afternoon into it, because I feel like that's what you kind of got to do with survival games, like Minecraft, Valheim. I think, when was it, Rust, on things like that. Like, you really want to devote like a good chunk of time to like get yourself situated and get like a little base built up, and kind of get into a flow so that like when you come back to it, you're like, okay, I know what I need to do. So I have that problem doing the Stardew stream every week. Stardew, not a survival game, but like has kind of the same core elements of like, you want to get yourself into a rhythm and like figure out what you want to do. And it's like after the 2 hours, and then I stop. Then I come back a week later, and it's like, I don't remember. I don't remember what I was doing. So, yeah. V Rising. Currently available in early access on Steam right now. I think it's about $20. Seems to be totally worth it. If I get a chance to try it out, I will come back with a review for a later deep dive. Up next, iOS 16. Normally, I don't report when like there's going to be a new Apple operating system update, because that happens, whenever, and it's Apple and iPhones. It deals with phones. It's not really the point of this podcast. What's relevant for this, though, is that iOS 16 will support Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons and Nintendo Switch Pro controllers. That's cool, folks. That means that you will be able to use a Pro controller with your phone if your phone supports iOS 16. That's really cool. Or your tablet. Also, this means that iPhones are going to get Nintendo Switch Pro controller support before the Epic Play Store does. And I'm still mad about it. It's one of those things where there's no reason for Epic to not have Switch Pro controller support. And like, even to this, it's 2022, and in order to get that, you still have to load Epic Store games through Steam in order to get it. And even then, it's still not perfect. And it's led to me not playing stuff on the Epic Play Store because that's the controller I got. Like, I don't want to go out and buy an Xbox controller. I don't want to do it. Like, I got a whole bunch of Switch Pro controllers. Like, why? So, so that'll be interesting. Yeah. It'll be definitely, because I don't know. I think my phone might be able to handle it. My phone and my tablet might be able to handle it. In which case, that'll be something for me to try out, and it might, change some of the games that I load onto them. I might be more willing to load stuff that works better with the controller. So, yeah. Maybe if Blizzard gets their act together and stops being a butt, maybe I'll install Diablo Immortal and play that with a controller. So, all right. Last bit of news is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet had a trailer. They made a big to-do about it. Made it seem like it was going to be a whole direct and everything, but it ended up being like a 2-minute trailer. Basically, we got the professors, general themes of like Scarlet seems to be focusing on the past, Violet seems to be focusing on the future. The professor is different for each game. I can't remember their names to save my life. But the Pokemon Scarlet professor, she basically wears it's like a top and mini skirt with a bunch of like fang necklaces and accoutrement to it, sort of to emphasize like the past. And in Pokemon Violet, the professor wears almost like a Fantastic Four jumpsuit that has sort of circuitry built into it. So we also got the legendaries. Legendaries also seem to re-emphasize this past versus future theme here. Pokemon Violet's going to have a dragon that has jet engines on it. Seems to be like Electric and Dragon, probably. Or maybe or something. Maybe Dragon and Flying. I don't know. Pokemon Scarlet has one. It almost looks like it has a wheel in its, like, under its jaw. Or it could just be like a big spiky like dewlap like iguanas have, but it looks like a wheel. So who knows? It, like, one might be made to look more like a dinosaur and the other one made to look like a giant sort of spacecraft dragon. Kind of excited about that. Multiplayer co-op is going to be a thing. So we all talked about, it was talked about for Pokemon Legends Arceus. Everybody sort of wanted their Pokemon MMO. Pokemon MMO, I'm going to tell you right now, not going to happen. I honestly think MMOs are kind of falling out of fashion. Just because of how much work is involved with them and the fact that you either have to go the subscription route or the freemium route, and both have people that are not fans of it at all. I think it's much more likely that you would maybe get what we could be getting, if it's implemented well. That's a big if for Game Freak. Like a multiplayer co-op adventure, where you can play it solo, but like you can also have, like 1 to 3 friends join you. And like, if you do that, I mean, guess what? That incentivizes you to do either double battles, triple battles, mass battles or whatever. That would be great. I would especially love for there to be more multiplayer turn-based RPGs. Instead of ARPGs, essentially. Because, like, it seems like ARPGs are where sort of MMOs moved in the direction of, where you are freely moving about and, everybody's sort of controlling their own thing and doing it on their own time. I would love to see, especially like a tactical RPG that does multiplayer co-op. I think that would be great. And I think Pokemon could do it if they wanted to. So here's hoping that we can get some of that with this. My guess is because it's Game Freak and my expectations are kind of tempered at this point. My guess is it's going to be only certain areas, and it's just wandering around and collecting things, and you're not going to be able to do a whole lot. But I would be overjoyed to be wrong on that. And then finally, Lechonk. Lechonk is an actual Pokemon name. It's a pig. It's a pig Pokemon. He's a little round pig, and he's called Lechonk, and so he's become the latest meme. Apparently, like, one, that could be, the localized, English name for the cute little meme of it and everything, but also, I guess, like, it's also related to a dish that's served, if not in Spain, then in Hispanic countries, of, like, it essentially like a pig roast. Although that's coming from Reddit, so take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, just Lechonk. So that is going to wrap up our quickfire news. So we're going to shift gears a bit from video game pop culture news to some Dungeons and Dragons. So here we go. All right, so it was last week or 2 weeks ago, I believe, we got an Unearthed Arcana playtest article for giant options in the game. There is a survey up right now for it to give thoughts and feedback. I really wish they would give more time because, like 2 weeks for most people is not enough time to test this stuff out. So, like, a lot of the feedback is going to be theoretical, I feel like, and just, like, how it feels, and a little bit of, like, sort of paper napkin, theory crafting. But essentially we got 3 subclasses and a bunch of feats. And once again, they're sort of talking about feat trees. I'm skeptical. I am super skeptical about the return of feat trees. But we'll see. So I'm just going to open up my my document here. It has them. So the subclasses that we have are Path of the Giants Barbarian. So these are when you rage, you turn into giant. So kind of like was it Rune Knight? I think for fighter. But it also so when you rage, so like starting at level 3, when you rage, you become large size. They're now including actual rules for how to handle large size player characters. It only took them 7 years to do it. And my hope is that this kind of like loosens the reins a bit on having large size PCs. Because like then it means that they could actually like, and they won't do it because like they already printed centaurs as medium size and tried to do weird stuff in there. But like centaur, they should be large. But also like, I mean, outside of, having a massive strength bonus, there's not really anything for ogres that would proclaim, like, it's big strength and large size are basically the reasons why you don't get, like, ogre PCs. And then the thing is, like, well, just play Goliath, and it's like, it's not the same. But anyway, so you grow to large size, and you can also add your rage damage to thrown weapons that use your strength. And then at level 6, you get to infuse your weapon with elemental power. Your weapon gains the throne property, regardless of whether it has it or not. So that's cool. I like that. 10th level, while raging, it gives you rules for throwing allies and enemies. So just picking them up and throwing them. So I like that. That's something, when you start getting into characters that are able to lift like several hundred pounds, it then begs the question of like, why do they not have kind of codified rules for this anyway? Or conversely, let's say, you have a character with 18 strength, like there should at least be, just like, even if it's a quick one-liner of like how to throw your gnome or halfling companions, or goblin companions, to like, get them up. I would mention your dwarf companions, but nobody tosses a dwarf. Yeah, but the fact that the level 10 features is you throw people. And then the 14th level is you become huge size. I love it. Like, I think this is it's a great example of a subclass. It has a lot of utility as well, of just like, now suddenly you're able, like, I mean, I kind of wish, because like when you rage, it has the limitations of like requiring damage to sustain that rage. And it would have been nice to have it be like, to give it some utility of that you're no longer bound by that limitation. So that way you can do things like, you could grow to tall size to like, help your allies like climb the mountain, sort of a thing. Granted, there are, if your DM's willing to do shenanigans, like you can cheese it by, having your allies like punch you to keep you going. So there is that. But I mean, yeah, like, essentially it gives you sort of an Ant-Man, giant man utility of like being able to grow to large, huge sizes. But then also, like, if you, like, especially if you have allies that fly or can ignore falling damage or whatever, now it's like you can activate your rage and pick people up and then just throw them to send them places. And I think that's cool. Like, it's thematically cool, and then the rules to back it up are also pretty decent. So yeah. All in all, thumbs up for Path of the Giant Barbarian. All right. Circle of the Primeval Druids. I got beef with this subclass. So the whole point of this subclass is to get a pet. And it's to get a pet that's basically like a dinosaur or other prehistoric beast, some primeval beast. And basically, the Primeval Companion uses sort of the same format as the Primal Beast Companions and Tasha's, so that they're better designed, and they get better abilities, and they get more hit points. And then when you look at like a lot of the features, so like for a druid, the features aren't that interesting, but like then when you compare it to a Beastmaster, they're like, oh, it's just a better version of Beastmaster for druids. The reason why I have beef is this goes back to 3rd edition, when essentially it was like, why play a ranger when you can just play a druid and do everything that rangers do but better? And I'm worried that we're kind of going back, like, at least for the class identity. Post 3rd edition, rangers were starting to get to a class identity of like some sort of scout or woodsman, and many varieties of them get a pet, get a beast that they hunt with. And this sort of is reinforced in other media with like the ranger hunter archetype. Whereas druids was, you get summons, and like that's where the summoner thing came in. And so the main issue I have with this is an issue of class identity, where it feels like it steps on the ranger's toes. Because at 6th level, they basically get share spells. But then also they essentially get like evasion, but against any saving throw for spells that you cast. They at 10th level, they are just large size. And then at 14th level, you can spend spell slots to give it a whole bunch of extra abilities, including making it huge size. And it's like a temporary thing. But still, like, this could have been a cool thing as a way to do like another variety of Beastmaster, and kind of reinforce sort of a primeval hunter archetype. And instead, they wanted to introduce more druids who use wild shape to not wild shape. And I'm like, well, at the same time, what if you used wild shape to kind of do like a more interesting wild shape that's also separate from Circle of Moon? Or that does interesting things with your spells, since, you're a full spellcaster. So, yeah, I don't know. So, I mean, the other problem is because the features don't actually help you be a better druid. It's just, they just give you a big pet. But at the same time, like you still get full spell casting. So I don't know. I guess I wish I kind of wish like battle pets essentially remain in the purview of rangers, and then have it be like Circle of Primeval, have it be a summon thing, because like Circle of Shepherds is technically like the summoning druid, but we still don't really have a lot of summoner archetypes in 5th edition, and like you could have done that, and have it be more like sort of 1 minute things or 1 hour things, instead of being a permanent companion. So yeah, because it basically lasts until it's reduced to 0 hit points, or you die. And then it basically like vanishes, but you can just re-summon it by spending a wild shape use. So yeah, I don't know. It also feels like that like just having it be dinosaurs, and primal beasts is like they are giant, but like they don't tie into giants. So I don't know. It was pointed out to me in like YouTube comments on one of the articles that another reason it might be that this is on Druid and not Ranger is that Rangers just got Drake Warden in Fizbins. And I don't know. I mean, here's the thing, right? I don't have a problem with Druids getting a subclass. I just have a problem. I want class identity to be a thing. Most of it, and like you can tell who plays Rangers because like class identity is at the top of the list for people who play Rangers, because it's such a problem. So, yeah, I kind of wish it was the mechanics and the flavor was something else aside from just I'm gonna play a pet class. It's like, well, then play Ranger. Like I don't know. But yeah, essentially, I wish it was like a summoner, and that like if you wanted to, like you could spend Wild Shape to make your summons bigger or something. I don't know. So yeah, ultimately, that's a thumbs down for me because of my own biases. Circle of Primeval Druid. There. All right. Runecrafter Wizard. So wizards that augment their spellcasting by inscribing runes on things. So things are like you always have comprehend languages prepared. You essentially get like so you get a bunch of runes that activate whenever you cast a spell. So the 3 that you get are life, where you give a creature temporary hit points. War, which is you give until the end of your next turn bonus to attack rolls against a particular creature. So I mean, really great if you're fighting like one enemy that has a really high AC. So you cast that, you target them, and then everybody that attacks that target until the end of your next turn gets a bonus to attack rolls equal to half the level of the spell slot you used. Minimum of +1 bonus. Oh, and it's rounded up. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. All right. So that's pretty good then. When something's good when D&D decides to round up instead of rounding down. Or Windrune, which is your speed increases by 5 feet times the 5 feet per level of the spell slot. So if you cast a 3rd level spell, your speed increases by 15 feet, and you don't provoke opportunity attacks until the start of your next turn. You can use that feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, as is the case for whatever. Level 6, you can use of your runic empowerment feature to basically get like legendary resistance for a strength, dexterity, or constitution saving throw. At level 10, you regain uses of runic empowerment when you use arcane recovery. And then at 14th level, the capstone is you can essentially mark an enemy with a special rune. So it can either be creature gets disadvantage on spells or on saving throws against spells you cast. Can't become invisible. and if it was invisible, it becomes visible. Or it takes additional force damage when somebody hits it once per turn. Excuse and that can be reactivated with that last one can be reactivated with a bonus action. And then we get a bunch of feats. So basically we get like a bunch of elemental feats, a bunch of giant based feats. One of the things that I find interesting is now, instead of just saying like you gain the following benefits, and then just having like a bulleted list, they now each benefit has like a name. So so feats now are like a list of features, of like named features instead of just like bullet points. Does not change a thing mechanically, but it's just like a presentation thing that I think is a little interesting. One thing that we do get is a feat that has no prerequisites, called Outsized Might, and I have a feeling this is to like tie into sort of a custom lineages, where it's essentially you get proficiency in either athletics or acrobatics. You get powerful build, so you count as one size larger for carrying capacity, and you have advantage on saves against being moved or being knocked prone. So I could see this being a way, like I could see them taking sort of ribbon features from existing sort of racial templates in D&D and sort of applying them to thematic feats for people who, and like for DMs who want to run a game and just say everybody does custom lineage. And then like if you have essentially like a feat with a bunch of stuff built into it, then you can be like, okay, well, essentially, I mean, you can pretty much build a Goliath with custom lineage now that we have outsized might. I mean, you don't get the, you don't get the stony hide ability sort of a thing, but you get like some of the other stuff. There's a Rune Carver Apprentice, or it's whenever you finish a long rest, you can mark a piece of like clothing or armor or an object with basically a spell. And until you finish a long rest, while you have that object, you can cast the associated spell with that rune once. Additionally, if you have spell slots, you can then use spell slots to cast that spell. So it's a way to like add more spells to your spells known, or prepared spells. And it's a whole list of runes. And a lot of, some of them are utility, some of them are damaging type stuff. They're all first level. I mean, they're all pretty good. Yeah, they're all pretty good spells. Oh, nope, shield is one of them, so yeah. So this is I have a feeling Rune Carver Apprentice is going to be a popular feat to pick up for a lot of builds, just so that it's essentially anybody can get shield. Which I guess you could get if you pick Magic Initiate. However, this one is you can also choose what your casting ability modifier is, instead of, because then shield would like always be tied to intelligence with Magic Initiate. And then there's like so there's a feat that you can take that has a prerequisite of 4th level and also is in the Rune Carver Apprentice feat tree, where you can mark multiple objects. But each object can only bear one rune. I think that'll also be interesting for artificers. And then you have all the various giant feats which have level prerequisites. I think all in all, some of them are pretty balanced. I think some of them are a bit weak. Like the Hill Giant one is like if you would be moved at least 5 feet or knocked prone, you can use your reaction to just cancel that. Which I think that's great. Dwarves got that in 4th edition as a base feature. So I like to see that come back. Then they have one where when a spell would restore your hit points, you can regain additional hit points equal to your Constitution modifier. You can use that a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. I wish that would just be passive. I don't think it's game breaking because healing in 5th edition is weak enough as is. That I don't think it would be game breaking to just let it be passive that you add your Constitution modifier to the hit points restored. I think 5th edition does have a problem with the whole whack-a-mole strategy of, unless you're dealing with sort of specific spells, it's generally not in your best interest to heal people until they drop, and then you heal them. Because there's not really any, there's no difference from being at 100 hit points or 1 hit point. And because there's no consequences to unless you fail 3 death saves, there's no consequences to failing death saves. So I wish that would be bumped up a little more. Other ones include Soul of the Storm Giant, which requires you to be 8th level, but you can surround yourself in an aura of wind and lightning and storm clouds. And then you can cast Divination as a ritual. Here's the thing. So you can cast it as a ritual without needing material components, but only once per long rest. So that's interesting. Because typically they don't put restrictions on ritual casting. So that's a little weird. And then the other, Fire Giant, Frost Giant is you get resistances and some sort of attack feature, vengeance type feature sort of a thing. Honestly, I feel like that's a little boring. But you do you. I do like Elemental Touched, which basically gives you cantrip and then gives you, some sort of extra elemental benefit. Again, tying it to proficiency bonus times per day. I don't know. I feel like all of these, you could have just left it as at will, I think. You cause the ground within 30 feet of you become difficult terrain for 1 minute or until you create this effect again. During that time, you can move across ground that is difficult terrain without spending extra movement. You surround yourself in a cloud of ash and smoke until the end of your turn. Your movement doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. The fact that that's tied to a number of times per day equal to your proficiency bonus, granted with Elemental Touch, you can shift which elemental you're attuned with every long rest, but if you're just going to keep attuning yourself to fire, you might as well just get the mobile feat, which ends up just being better. Because then you just have to you just have to attack a creature in melee. You don't even have to hit or miss. And your movement doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. Water is just you can do a ranged push to push somebody 10 feet that's up to 15 feet away from you. Like, I don't know. Like, if you're going to spend a feat, like... Because here's, like, you could do the same thing with the Gust cantrip. Which, by the way, because that doesn't appear in the player's handbook, like, you'll never see that in any of these or referenced in any of these things. Which makes me sad, because, like, it should be... Like, I would rather see, instead of elemental touched, you have a different feat, like, per element. And it'd be like you get control flames and the fire benefit. And then have it be at will. Or what is it? Not move earth. Maybe shape earth? Or mold earth, maybe? Whatever the cantrip version is, plus like that earth benefit, or gust and the air benefit, which is you get a fly speed equal to your walking speed until the end of your turn. If you're airborne after using that movement, you just fall. So it's like, I mean, that's not that overpowered. So yeah, ultimately, I think mixed on the feats. I think I'm okay with, like, I don't want to go down the route of, the 3rd edition feat trees where you had, like, you have to get 6 feats in and then have, like, a couple feats from another tree to qualify for this one feat to just make a build work. I think I'm okay with, like Runecarver Apprentice and then Runecarver Adept. And, like, keeping it at 1. Like, you can go 1 deep. And the reason why, I mean, like, because it directly augments Runecarver Apprentice. So I'm okay with that, I think. I think if you start getting into, like, different feats requiring other feats, and they don't directly relate to each other, I think that becomes nonsensical. I am 100% okay with feats having levels for prerequisites. I think that's a great way to introduce some higher powered feats without worrying about them unbalancing the game if somebody takes it at first level. So yeah. So all in all, I think mostly positive on this. I think Runecarver Wizard's cool. I think most of the feats are like, let's put it this way. I think at least the general theme of the feats is interesting. I think some of them, like, they could have more interesting mechanics tied to them. Path of Giant Barbarian, best of the bunch. And then Circle of Primeval Druid, I'm not interested in Beastmaster, but better. Boo. So, all right. That's going to wrap things up for our deep dive. So we're just going to do a quest log really quick. Well, and speaking of giant monsters and dinosaurs and primeval beasts and stuff, so the goal of, what would have been last podcast or whatever was to play Monster Hunter Rise, try and get more quests done since Sunbreak releases at the end of the month, and then work on the character page that's going in the 8-Bit Adventures Chapter 1 book. So I managed to do both of them. Basically, it was just laying out text, just getting a very bare bones thing, and, like, what characters to put on that character page. I think I gotta massage the text a little bit, try and figure out. I might have to present it to, somebody else and see, like, what would be a helpful blurb, like, to a reader. So for this upcoming week, I'm going to play more Monster Hunter Rise. I got to get to HR 100 and do Velstrax. And then the goal is going to be to select art and do just like a little character window for each character to coincide with their intro. This is, taking a page out of the book for, I'm sure a lot of graphic novels and comic series do this. The one I'm most familiar with that does this idea is Fables. And so by including like a, essentially a headshot with an intro, it's like, okay, so these are big, interesting players in this story. So I'll be sure to be on the lookout for them. And I also do that like in the comic itself. So, I could also just, kind of cheese it and just like directly lift it from those intros. But I could also decide if I want to do a more updated portrait. I could. We'll have to see. So those are the goals for next week. So that is going to wrap things up for this week. This week's podcast, episode 266. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you would like to see more content from 8-Bit Adventures, be sure to check out 8-bitadventures.com. It would help if I can type it out in chat correctly. Over there, you can find the 8-Bit Adventures comic. You can find VODs of previous podcasts. You can find audio files for other podcasts, such as Berkshire Bites. If you would like to help support all of that good stuff, I would say please consider becoming a patron over at patreon.com/8bitadventures. You can become a patron and get benefits for 20% of the cost of being a Twitch subscriber. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month. And I do it by the month and not by the post. So if you pledge like $1 a month, that's all you pay. Every little bit helps. So if it doesn't seem like $1 is that much, and like, why bother? Every little bit helps. And most of the benefits are available to all patrons. So early access to comics, patron exclusive comics. But there is a higher tier in which you also get access to some behind the scenes sort of playtest D&D content, some homebrew stuff that I'm thinking of for my homebrew campaign. That someday we're gonna get the show back to do. And then last up, our opening theme is One Up by Professor Shy Guy. You can find his work over at professorshyguy.bandcamp.com. So big shout out and thanks to Professor Shy Guy. One Up has, at least the instrumental version of One Up, has been our theme since episode 1, all the way back in 2015, I think. So big shout out to him. Hope he's doing well. And hope you are all doing well, folks. Once again, thank you for listening. Patrons, thank you for your support. And as always, have fun, happy gaming, and enjoy your pie cake.